How would it feel knowing the one you love will be there, but for a fraction of your life? You will have to face the remaining ages of the world alone. Would you release your spirit's hold on the world, or retreat to the Undying Land? Or would you choose to spend the time you can spend with them? These are the questions many a firstborn in Middle-earth has to ponder after falling in love with a man. The men have the gift, where after death they will not go to the Undying Lands of the Valar. This means that their immortal lovers will have to spend eternity after their death alone. While Kíli and Tauriel face the same dilemma in The Hobbit, since dwarrow goes to the Halls of Mahal. Most of the cross-racial pairings Professor Tolkien created were between the elves and the children of the men. You may have heard of one of them, Aragorn and Arwen, but we all know it is Beren and Luthien, who were the great love epic in Middle-earth. Yet, before we dive into these relationships themselves, let's take a look at why elf-human relationships are such a subject of intrigue. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. HumanElf Relation. What does it mean in Arda? Both races are made by Eru Iluvatar, though the elves were the firstborn in the Song of Arda, despite being the third of the free people. Immortal and beautiful, those elves were made in the image of the Valar themselves. Atani, or men, are the fourth of the free people of Middle-earth. They were seen as a burden by the first, as they were the most like Melkor, and desired power. But like Eru intended, the men did not follow the Song of Ainur, and instead used their strange gifts, both to stray and also to return to glory. Hence, the Dark Lord feared men most of all the race, combined with the fact that even the Valar don't know where men go when they die, except that unlike elves, they will play a role in the rebuilding of the world after it ends. Relationships between elves and men can become distraught. After all, the elves were tied to that fate of Middle-earth, immune to illness and age after reaching maturity. Only despair or violence could end them, and losing a loved one can cause that despair. How can these two races have romance? One is immortal, and even when the world ends, they will be in the Undying Lands with the Valar, while the other, the men, are prone to mistakes that even elves don't understand. Death parts them. Men go to some unknown place instead of spending eternity with the Valar. Despite this, just like Tauriel, many elves found love in a race not their own. Unlike the Maiden of the Forest, though, they sought men. Those that break north, elves and men in love. Beren and Luthien. Beren and Luthien are the names that appear on the graves of Professor Tolkien and his wife Edith. Luthien was an elven maiden who fell in love with Beren, and their love story led to a whole book in Tolkien's mythos. In the preface of the book, Christopher Tolkien shares that his father had erased the whole original manuscript and written over it, but it can still be gleaned that while at one point Beren was a fellow elf, in the first and final draft he remained a man. All the various versions of this legendary romance have been shared for readers to engage with, showing how mythology evolved in Arda. Yet some threads remain common in all versions of the story. The immortal elf maiden, daughter of Amaya, Melian, and King Thingol of Doria, fell in love with Beren, a mortal man. He saw her dancing in a glade, and thought the most beautiful creation of Eru was indeed deserving of the title Tenuvia. Yet love is rarely easy. King Thingol set up a challenge for Beren and Luthien, which would eventually take their lives. Beren was to steal a Silmaril from Melkor. The two did it and were happily together. Their deeds were such that they were even granted a second life on Middle-earth. Not only was their story a part of the Silmarillion, but it was also told by Aragorn to Frodo during the quest for the ring, as a parallel to his and Arwen's love. Does this mean the only other human-elf couple in Arda is Arwen and Aragorn? No, other than Luthien's descendants, many other elves lost their hearts to the moral children of Eru. Wait, Luthien's descendants? What? Yes, Arwen is the daughter of Elrond, who was the great-grandson of the very elvish princess, and even Aragorn is descended from that son of hers who chose immortal life, Elrond. Their coming together brought the two branches of Luth together, as the kings of the reunited kingdom, fulfilling the idea that Luthien's bloodline would never end. Luthien's bloodline is also rich in the tapestry of Middle-earth. Her granddaughter Elwyn married the son of another human-elf couple, Tuor and Idil, named Earendil. Elwyn chose for both to be elves, after seeing what Luthien had to endure because she chose to be mortal. Yes, elves could choose when marrying a human, whether they wished to remain immortal and suffer through the agony of being alive after their wedded had passed, or whether to die like a great example of this, of course, is that one couple that every Lord of the Rings fan swears by. Aragorn and Arwen. I would rather share one lifetime with you than face all the ages of this world alone. In a beautiful starlight scene, Arwen says these words to Aragorn, soon to be King Elessar, after he won the War of the Ring, though the lovers did not know that yet. Just like her ancestor Luthian, Arwen, who was said to be just beautiful, fell for a human. This man was her father's ward, the king without a throne, Aragorn. Fans said Elrond feared the separation from his daughter, thus he said he would approve of their love only after Elessar won his throne back. In the books, it's said that Elrond did not have any problems, but just insisted that Aragorn must fulfill his destiny of reclaiming his throne before he could be bound to a wife. The reason for this was that he wanted his daughter to lose her immortality and ability to enter the Undying Lands only if the path ahead was clear. Despite knowing that he would never see her again after the Age of Elves ended if she chose mortality, he supported their love. In the movies, as we mentioned, it was different. Peter Jackson invented several scenes for the couple, such as Arwen giving the Elven Star to Aragorn as a symbol of her affection. In the Twin Towers, Arwen waits for Aragorn to defeat Sauron, but Elrond convinces her to lose hope and travel to the Undying, saying that even if the Age of Men arrives with Sauron's defeat, Arwen, by choosing Elessar, would be doomed to the misery of being the only elf remaining in Arda. The third movie, Return of the King, sees Arwen on her journey to Valinor, yet her steps aren't enthusiastic. And then hope arrives in the form of a vision of her son with Aragorn, and she returns to Rivendell, just like she had from Lothlorien when Aragorn first saw her. Once Elrond was convinced that the men could win, he reforged the sword that was broken, and Aragorn used it to victory. In the books, Arwen did not play as significant a role, while she did stitch the banner Aragorn used when commanding the army of the dead that he, Legolas, and Gimli had found. Narsil, the sword that was broken, was reforged by the future King Elessar himself. The series tells us how this love ended. Aragorn was a great ruler for many long years, until he decided it was his time to take the gift. Then Arwen is said to have been seen on the roof of her castle, looking at the horizon. No one knows what happened to the Queen of Minas Tirith beyond that. While these cross-racial pairings celebrate love, Tolkien always makes a point to show they're a difficult path to tread. Sure, Arwen wasn't a lone elf, for Legolas stayed with Gimli in Middle-earth for the longest time, until they sailed their own ship to the Undying Land, in defiance of all law. And yes, she got immeasurable joy with Aragorn in her life, and was able to receive the gift of Eru, presumably. Yet she lost her family. Had she chosen immortality, she would have watched her lover wither and die, and stayed with that pain forever, or lost him by going to the Undying with the last ship, and would have had to endure the pain of longing and separation. Through these stories, we learn that love, while rewarding, requires effort, but we also learn that some may choose to have a affair with the person they lived with, instead of a lifetime that ends too soon. Others find solace in each other's arms, and nothing could replace that, like Arwen and Luthien did in the embrace of their mortal lovers. Yet, not all human and elf romances are tragic or bittersweet. In those who became happy in their cross-racial romance, we have the fan-favorite couple, Tuor and Idil. Tuor and Idil are a couple from Gondolin. When Tuor, son of Huor, arrived in Gondolin, the elven Idil fell for him. Once they were wed, Idil asked Tuor to create a secret passage out of the city, known as Idril's Secret Passage, which saved many lives during the fall of Gondolin. After the fall of their city, the two became the leaders of a displaced people, and eventually welcomed into their midst the granddaughter of Luthien and Beren, the only other elf-human couple before them. Elwing fell for the son of Tuor and Idil, Earendil, and fathered Lord Elrond, the half-elven, and King Elros. While these three chose the lives of elves and immortality, Elrond's brother Elros chose mortal life post the War of Wrath, an episode that fans feel is important in the setting of the peaceful landscape of the Rings of Power. Sam Gamgee is right. All these stories are connected. The granddaughter of the first elven-human couple falls for the son of the second, and their children eventually help the ring-bearer, and also give birth to the third elven-human pair, right before elves leave Middle-earth forever. As Sam put it, they're all part of the same story, which gets even more interesting when one looks at the fact that Tuor and Idil sailed west at the end of their day, and are rumored to have reached Valinor, making Tuor the only man allowed to bypass the laws of the Valar and stay in the Undying Land. Gigaless fans, do we think Gimli, son of Gloin, became the first dwarrow to reach there? After all, while Tuor, according to fans, might have been the picture of Tolkienian heroism, Gimli was beloved by Galadriel, getting a gift that Feanor himself had been refused. Well, whether Gimli and Legolas reached the Undying Land together, or the Prince of Mirkwood got there alone, or they are forever sailing Arda, who knows? But we do know of another elf and human romance, even if it's widely debated upon in Tolkien discourse forums. Mithrelas and Imrazor. Appendix A of Lord of the Rings states very clearly that there were 3 unions of the Eldar, aka Elf, and the Aedian, aka Men, Beren and Luthien, Tuor and Idil, and Arwen and Aragorn. Yet fans have noticed that there are more such couples, which has led to speculation as to what this statement meant. Were these three the only couples who married? Are they the only historically significant one? Does Eldar or Aedian only refer to nobility in their races, and thus others aren't a part of the list? Among this discourse is the tale of Mithridates and Imrazor. Their descendant, Prince Imrahil, was a significant player in the War of the Ring as a leader of the men of Gondor outside the Minas Tirith. Legolas himself saw that there was elvish blood in Imrahil's veins, showing us that the story of Mithridates and Imrazor had to be true. Thus, fans have poured through Tolkien's Legendarium, the way Gandalf poured through the notes on the One Ring. Among the various theories, the one we like best is that the love story was true. Yet since Mithridates was a Sylvan or Wood Elf, some may discount her from the line of the Elf. While many texts say all elves who took the journey, whether they finished it or not, are Eldar, fans have found some evidence in Appendix F that says Sylvan elves or Wood Elves are distinct from the Eldar. This gets deeper when one looks at the fact that there are various subspecies of the Eldar, one of which is the Avari, which many assume are the Wood Elves or the Sylvan Elves who never journeyed west. As such, Mithridates wouldn't be among the Eldar, despite being, and her love for a son of Numenor, Imrazor, wasn't historically significant to the major plots of the Lord of the Rings either. All we know of their story is that Imrazor found Mithridates lost in the woods of Belfast and married her. We do not know whether she tied her life to that of Imrazor, which could be another reason why her romance isn't counted by Appendix A scholar. All we know is after the birth of her daughter, she ran away into the night, never to be seen again. And while many would say these are the canon cross-racial pairings in Lord of the Rings, some fans argue there are more, albeit unfulfilled romance, and one very significant fulfilled. After all, Beren and Luthien's son Dior was a mortal man who had a half-elven daughter, meaning he must have married one of the Eldar, Dior and Nim. Dior was the mortal son of Beren and Luthien, who fell in love with Nim. Fans have again speculated why this pair isn't included in the other half-elf mortal pairings, such as Aragorn and Arwen. Then again, Earendil and Elwing, both being half-elven, weren't included in Appendix A either. So perhaps your half-elvish blood needs to be diluted for generations before you're considered a man, like Aragorn, descendant of Elwing. The other common theories are that either Dior died too young for anyone to realize he wasn't an elf, or their story wasn't that big of a deal. Though, what does Appendix A mean for the Rings of Power? If we take that there were only 3 Eldar men pairs, then we have to wonder if Appendix F's definition of seal and elves is why Arondir and Bronwen have a blossom, or are they doomed, and we readers know it ahead of time? Come on, let's look at their story. Arondir and Bronwen. In Rings of Power, we see 2 original characters form a blossoming. They are Arondir, an elf, and Bronwen, a woman from the Southland. Am I wrong, or is this the only relationship here where the woman is mortal? This relationship was fraught with troubles, as fans disliked these characters for being new, and thus unnecessary. And they were mad also at the non-canon idea of elves of color. In Universe 2, these lovers were fated to have a difficult, as the men of the South despised elves, and thought they were only there to keep them from stirring up trouble, which is precisely why Arondir was stationed. While the showrunners have said their romance gives depth to the narrative, considering romances are, in their opinion, central to LOTOR. This widow and her elven lover are not fan favorites, despite many famous portals saying it would be a mistake to abandon their storyline. Perhaps Arondir's Sylvan heritage could save them, or perhaps we'll see that despite being from the line of men, Bronwen doesn't count, as her ancestors had stirred too far from good and right. Or perhaps theirs is a doomed romance. After all, that's what happens with original characters who fall in love with another race in this franchise. Kíli and Tauriel, anyone? What will Arondir choose? A life of mortalness with his widowed single mom lover? Or will he choose the Undying Lands? Will he even get a choice? I mean, man has already escaped one execution. Will he be able to escape another if he fights orcs and Adar? We do not see him in The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, and that could mean a lot of things, including death. Or perhaps out of despair, he let his spirit fade. Only the new season can give us answers, don't you think? After all, even Bronwen was planning to take her people away. Well, while the showrunners sort that out, all we can do is present...
I know how I feel. I'm not afraid. You make me feel alive.
A marvelous review. The romances between the elder and younger children of Eru have been a point of fan interest. They've led to lines of great kings and lords, who have fought to keep Arda safe from the evils of Sauron, while other pairs have been hinted, such as the fairy wife of one of the Tooks. These unions are the ones Professor Tolkien spends his time and effort on. They've enriched the mythos of the Lord of the Rings by producing the race of half-elves or half-elves who can choose whether to be mortal or choose the life of the Eldar. What would you choose in such a circumstance? And do you think the society in Lord of the Rings would be kind to such lovers if they weren't always kings and lords? Let us know in the comments. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!